The garage light flicked off a second before I stepped in. She had not heard me approach, or maybe she had. Her voice had already gone quiet, just enough of a whisper to sound intimate, secretive. I saw her reflection in the small square mirror on the tool bench, phone still warm in her palm, her breath steady. Her mouth curled, confident. That was when she said it. "You will miss me one day," she murmured into the phone like it was a promise. Or a warning. She did not see me. I stepped back before the door swung fully open, retreating into the darkened hallway. I watched her silhouette slide into the house through the kitchen door, casual, unbothered. I did not speak. I let the moment sit cold in my chest. That sentence was not thrown in anger. It was calculated, rehearsed maybe. It did not sound like she was talking to a friend. It sounded like she wanted someone else to miss her. I stood alone in the quiet, heart not pounding, just watching, processing. There had been signs before, of course, but signs are not proof. They are suggestions, plausible deniability in human form. That night she came to bed the way she always did. She slid beneath the covers and turned her back to me, phone set face down, silent mode. Her breathing eased within minutes. It always amazed me how easily she could fall asleep while my mind tore at itself for clarity. I stared at the ceiling and let the timeline settle. Her travel patterns, her shifts in conversation. The new perfume she said a client gave her as a gift. The 2 extra lunches charged to our joint card last week. She had said she needed to meet with a potential consulting partner. She used words like branding alignment and future positioning. It was corporate white noise. I nodded at the time. The next morning I checked her phone, not her messages. That would be clumsy. Her calendar. Her meeting 2 days ago had been logged as a lunch with Sharon K. No last name. No company. I cross-referenced the name against her LinkedIn contacts and found no Sharon anywhere in her network. I did not ask. I started logging. I built a second calendar on my laptop, syncing only the events she told me aloud versus the ones she logged. I made a spreadsheet. I listed meal charges, location patterns, rideshare pickups. I compared it against my own company's performance logs. Something was shifting in my sector. Aggressive client poaching, preemptive contract disputes, odd rumor trends about our revenue health. At first I had blamed the economy. Then I began to suspect something more targeted. I ran a test. I mentioned an internal strategy shift to her during dinner, one that did not actually exist. A directional rumor, just enough detail to sound authentic. She had nodded, curious but neutral. 3 days later, that same strategy appeared as a blog post by a competitor we had not yet named publicly as a threat. She was leaking information. The realization did not spark rage. It sparked stillness. A settling of facts in my chest, like dust over something long abandoned. This was not just personal. It was structural, calculated. 2 weeks later, she came home with a new client proposal. "I think you should meet him," she said as she set the paper down on our kitchen counter, her eyes too bright, her tone just slightly rehearsed. "He is interested in long-term investments and brand equity realignment. It could benefit you." Her hand brushed mine as she passed the folder over. Her nails were done in the same pale mauve she wore when we first met. That detail felt crueler than anything else. I read the cover page. The investor's name meant nothing to me on the surface. But his affiliated firm did. They had attempted to poach me once quietly years ago, back when I still believed loyalty was mutual. I closed the folder without reacting. She leaned against the counter and studied me. "You look tired," she said softly. "You need a break. Maybe we both do." I nodded. "Maybe we do." That night I reached out to the only person left in my circle I still trusted unconditionally, our corporate counsel. I told him I needed a discreet audit, nothing traceable. "You will get my silence if I am wrong," I said, "but I need to know." He hesitated before replying, then his tone shifted. "Actually, there is something I have been meaning to ask you." His words confirmed what I had already begun to suspect. The woman in my bed in my life had stopped being my partner long before I heard her whisper to someone else. "You will miss me one day," she had said. She was wrong, because that day would never come. I did not alter my tone with her, not once. That was the strategy, maintain the illusion. Let her feel calm. Let her believe I was still what she needed me to be, tired, distracted, loyal. That illusion was more useful than confrontation. The audit results came back in pieces, subtle, careful. Our counsel flagged 3 anomalies in the past quarter, all tied to departments she had no official access to. She has been sitting in on internal innovation briefings, he said over the phone, his voice low but certain. No one logged her presence because no one questioned it. She is your wife. The word felt tactical now, not sentimental. A legal title, not a bond. I reviewed the security footage myself. She had been in the R&D room during a private briefing. The excuse she gave: just dropped by to bring him lunch. The body language was wrong, though. She had not lingered by the door. She had stood near the whiteboard making notes, smiling, participating. I watched the footage 3 times. Each time I felt the same flicker in my gut, not heartbreak, recognition. She had already chosen a different side. The tipping point came when I contacted a mutual friend in venture capital, someone she would not think I still had access to. I asked him if he had heard anything about Sharon K. His reply was short and immediate. She does not exist, but there is a holding company in that name, and it is moving quickly. Quiet purchases, one of them targeting your licensing structure. He paused, then added, she is not working alone. That night I asked her about the proposal again. She poured 2 glasses of wine, an old bottle we had been saving, and leaned on the kitchen island like nothing had shifted between us. Did you think about the offer? She asked, her tone light. I mirrored her calm. It seems bold, almost too tailored, like someone knew exactly what to say. She smiled at that, took a sip. Maybe they are just smart. Maybe they pay attention. I nodded and did not press. Instead, I waited until she was asleep and pulled the envelope from the filing cabinet she thought I never touched. The same cabinet where I kept early licensing documents, sealed agreements, time-stamped partnerships. She had removed something. There was a thin gap where the file on our 2022 acquisition used to be. That file included key clauses, clauses that would prevent her from ever owning those patents, even by proxy. But it was gone. The theft was not random. It was strategic. I replaced the envelope with a decoy. I let her think I had not noticed. 2 days later, she sent me a text while I was in a meeting. Dinner tonight, just us. No emojis, no hearts, just routine, domestic camouflage. That evening, she made pasta the way I liked it, simple, olive oil, sea salt. She brought it to the table wearing a dress I had complimented 3 years ago. Her hair was tied back. Underneath it all, I saw the performance. She was managing me. I have been thinking, she said after 2 bites. Maybe I could help with more of the business side. You are stretched thin. I studied her face and matched her tone. That would be generous. She placed her hand over mine. I want us to win, you know. Her skin was warm, her nails clean, her voice soothing. And I understood in that moment she had become fluent in playing the long game. The patience behind her calculated shifts, the way she re-entered roles as needed. Lover, partner, strategist. I withdrew my hand slowly as if from heat. I am going to get some air, I said. She nodded. Take your time. I stepped outside, phone in hand. No texts, no alerts, no incoming calls, but I was not waiting for her to slip. I was building the net. She was not just preparing to leave. She was preparing to rewrite the narrative, and I was no longer waiting to miss her. I was preparing to dismantle her blueprint. By the following Monday, my counsel had located something worse than I expected. There is a filing, he said, tapping the folder in front of him without opening it. His voice was low, not out of fear, out of respect for the weight it carried. A limited partnership agreement backdated 6 months. It shifts provisional ownership of your IP portfolio to her under emergency governance protocols. I kept my face still, my hands folded. It is notarized, he continued. Witnessed by 2 names I traced to her college circle. One of them works at a firm adjacent to your wife's newest client. The other had not been in the city that week. She misrepresented the facts. There are inconsistencies in the timestamps and digital signatures. Has it been filed formally? I asked. Not yet. It was prepped, sitting in a holding database, likely meant to be activated only if you were incapacitated or publicly discredited. The blood moved through my veins with the slow deliberation of strategy, not panic. It was not just a betrayal, it was a pending execution. She used the surgery window, I said, when I was under anesthesia. My counsel did not reply. He did not need to. I drove home without music. Silence became an ally, uncomplicated, precise. I could hear every decision forming. No rage, no mourning, just timelines and leverage. When I walked through the door, she was laughing on a video call. Her voice bounced through the living room like it had nothing to hide. She wore a charcoal blazer, sleek and fitted, over a white blouse she used only for high-value meetings. Her smile was practiced. I watched it fall away half a second too late when she noticed me standing in the entryway. She covered the lens. "Hey," she said, forcing lightness into her voice. "I thought you were working late." I set my briefcase down. Meeting was short. She ended the call a beat too fast. Smile she tried to rebuild cracked at the corners. "I was just catching up with an old friend," she said. I nodded. "Sharon K." Her breath paused, sharp and short, a blink. "No," she said, "different friend." I did not press. I simply walked past her into the kitchen. The wine bottle from 2 nights ago was still on the counter, unopened now, just for show. I opened the fridge, grabbed a water, and returned to the dining table with no urgency. I flipped open my laptop and loaded 3 files. One of them was a screenshot of the forged agreement. She approached slowly, her heels soft on the tile. "Everything okay?" she asked, feigning concern. "Do you know what perjury is?" I asked, without looking up. She did not respond. I turned the screen toward her. There it was, the digital signature with the wrong time stamp, the clause she had inserted giving herself exclusive advisory rights, and the names of the witnesses, both fake. Her voice came soft, nearly inaudible. "Where did you get that?" "Where do you think?" I asked. She sat down without asking. That was new. Her hands folded in her lap. Her mouth opened, then shut again. She was calculating now, not apologizing, not denying. "You were not supposed to find that yet," she finally said, her voice steady. So that was it. No shock, no shame, just disappointment in her timing. I leaned back. "You are not very good at patience," I said. "You used to be." "I was trying to protect myself," she said, a rehearsed line delivered with fragile clarity. "You have been distant for months. You buried yourself in the company." She was shifting blame, not even subtly. "I was protecting the company from enemies I did not realize were inside my house," I said. Her face did not flinch. That too was an admission. The conversation ended there, not with shouting, not with tears, just silence. The kind that settles between two people who have both already decided their next move. She left the room first. I sent a single email to my internal security lead, flagging the timestamps and requesting immediate asset lockdown on all licensing documents. I copied my counsel. By morning, she would realize the game was no longer about her next move. It was about the one I had already made. I received the call at 9:17 a.m. sharp. It was not unexpected. I'd been waiting for it. "There is a report," my counsel said, "filed last week under IRS whistleblower protections. It alleges internal fraud, improper revenue handling, and strategic misreporting. It reads like it came from someone with intimate access." I did not speak. I let the silence answer for me. "There is no signature," he continued. "It was filed anonymously, but the metadata on the scanned documents you received a copy of, there is something odd." "What is that?" I asked. "They were scanned using a device registered to your home router. The exact model matches the one in your office." I turned in my chair and looked at the corner cabinet across the room. The scanner sat there, small, unremarkable. She had used it 2 weeks ago, claiming she needed to digitize documents for her volunteer project. "You are saying she built this herself?" I said. "No," he replied. "She had help. We traced the submission routing path. It was not random. It came through a connection tied to a former compliance officer." "Name?" I asked, though I already knew. "Derek Miles," he said. That name closed the circuit. Derek had tried to buy out a minority stake in my firm 3 years ago. I had declined. So had the board. He left bitter, publicly polite, but privately aggressive. I had not seen his name resurface until she handed me that proposal 2 weeks ago. She had used him, or perhaps it had been mutual from the start. I ended the call and pulled the printed copy of her proposal from my drawer. I scanned the last page again. A clause about conditional access to financial structures under restructuring terms. Buried in legalese, it granted power of inquiry, an open door disguised as transparency. That was the trap. She was not just undermining me. She was pre-building my collapse. I forwarded the report to a friend in internal audit at a federal level. "Unofficially," I wrote, "does this look familiar?" The response came less than an hour later. "Yes, a cousin of Derek Miles works enforcement at IRS. Quiet overlap, very questionable timing. Want me to flag it internally?" I told him yes, but to delay formal action. I needed her to move first. If I retaliated now, she could spin it as panic. But if she thought she had succeeded, that evening I returned home before her. I opened a bottle of the wine she had left on the counter days earlier and waited at the kitchen table. The house was still, too clean, the kind of quiet that only exists when someone is trying to maintain the illusion of control. She came in with her bag slung over one shoulder, coat folded neatly over her arm. Her phone stayed in her hand. She blinked at the wine, then smiled. "Celebrating something?" she asked. I poured a second glass and slid it toward her. "You tell me." She hesitated a moment too long before sitting. Her smile faltered. I watched her closely. "There's something I have been meaning to ask you," I said. She raised an eyebrow. "What is that?" "When you filed the IRS report," I asked, voice level, "did you think it would work, that it would take me down fast enough before I noticed everything else?" Her fingers tightened around the stem of the glass. She did not drink. "You are paranoid," she said finally. "You have been spiraling for weeks." "You are right," I said calmly. "I am spiraling right through your entire strategy." She looked up then, sharp. Not fearful, defensive. "I do not know what you think you found," she said, "but this is toxic." She stood. I did not stop her. I watched her walk toward the hall, then I spoke without raising my voice. "They already know, the IRS, the cousin, the metadata." She froze. "I did not need to catch you," I added. "You left a trail wide enough to drive a settlement through." She turned halfway back, her face pale now. "This is still your word against mine." "No," I said. "It is your words. Your IP address. Your signatures, all mirrored, all archived." She opened her mouth. Nothing came out. I stood and left the wine untouched. "You should call Derek. He has been suspended pending review." I walked past her without another glance. This was not the climax. This was the slow collapse. She had built her campaign in the dark. But now she was the only one still pretending the lights were off. It took less than 48 hours for her foundation to crumble from the inside. I did not leak the documents. I did not need to. The person who exposed her did not even realize they had done it. Her friend Amelia had posted a story on her professional account, an image from a rooftop brunch downtown. Champagne flutes, half-eaten plates, a sweeping view of the skyline. In the corner of the frame, blurred but unmistakable, sat a document folder with the logo of my firm stamped across the cover. My firm's logo. My proprietary internal documentation watermark. The timestamp on the post placed it exactly 1 week before the forged filing date. I enlarged the image. I enhanced the blur. Then I matched the angle and the markings against the forged agreement she had prepared. It was identical. The version in that photo had not yet been modified. It had the original date, the unaltered clause structure. Her copy had been changed days later, manipulated to fit the backdated narrative. She had shared the draft with friends before finalizing it. Now one of them had posted proof. I sent the image to my legal team. Then I flagged Amelia's account for future deposition. By the next morning, my counsel reached out. "This confirms willful premeditation," he said. "It means she cannot claim misunderstanding or error. She shared a false version in advance. That is conspiracy. At this point, we recommend immediate filing for injunctive relief on all asset claims." "File it," I said. "Do you want to inform her first?" "No," I said. "Let the court tell her." By noon, the server delivered the documents. Injunction granted, accounts frozen. Business access revoked. At 2:14 p.m. she called me. I did not answer. At 3:02 a message came through. "We need to talk, please." At 4:09 another. "You are blowing this out of proportion." I did what I had to. I read the words 3 times. I did not reply. By 5:30 my internal security lead messaged. She tried to use her badge. Denied. Walked away without saying anything. That evening I drove past the house and saw her lights still on. I did not stop. Instead, I sent a short press statement to my firm's public relations team. "Leadership transition in progress. All internal audits have cleared. Business is secure." They posted it. A single sentence, clean, sharp, undeniable. She would see it. So would Derek. So would the investors who had been circling like vultures. I had not destroyed her. She had done that herself. I had just pulled the curtain back. By midnight, Amelia had deleted the photo, but not before we had archived it through legal chains. It would be the cornerstone of a formal filing. Her inner circle, once her shield, had now become the final proof of intent. When I checked my inbox one last time that night, a final message waited from her. No subject, just a line in the body: "You do not understand why I did it." She was wrong. I understood exactly why. She had bet on my silence. She had built a plan assuming I would miss her. But the only thing I missed was the moment I first looked at her and still believed she was mine. The gala was her favorite event of the year. She used to plan her outfits weeks in advance, picking colors based on the sponsor tier, timing her arrivals to maximize visibility. She once said to me, half laughing over a glass of wine, "Reputation is currency. You do not spend it, you display it." This year I made sure she had a front row seat to her own bankruptcy. She arrived wearing silver, classic, understated, elegant. The kind of dress meant to whisper confidence. Her hair was perfect, her posture controlled. She walked into the room like the queen of an empire still standing. The irony was almost elegant. I stood near the back, next to two people who used to be in her corner, our former mutual friends, now quietly aligned with truth. They had seen the filings. They had read the transcripts. Their silence was not loyalty, it was clarity. She had not yet seen me. The program ran as planned: a few speeches, smiles, camera flashes. Then came the short presentation highlighting strategic donors and key figures behind this year's charitable growth. She had been one of them, or so she thought. When the screen transitioned, her name did not appear. In its place, a brief note: "Removed by board decision following ongoing legal review. Contributions suspended." The room quieted for a second too long. Then I stepped forward. I walked onto the stage calmly, greeted the host, and addressed the crowd without notes. I spoke of transparency, of rebuilding trust, of protecting legacy not just through numbers but through integrity. I never mentioned her name, but I did reference the forged filings, the attempt to mislead stakeholders, the abuse of proximity to influence internal assets without transparency. And then I ended with a slide, a single image. Blurred at first, then sharpened, Amelia's rooftop photo. There it was, my firm's folder, the watermark, the unedited document, a time stamp in the corner, unmistakable. I looked out at the crowd and let the silence build. When I stepped down, the applause was restrained, respectful. No one looked in her direction. I passed her in the hallway near the coat check. She stood alone, arms crossed, shoulders tight. Her phone hung in one hand, but the screen was dark. No calls, no messages, not anymore. She opened her mouth as I approached, but I shook my head before she could speak. "I warned you," I said. Without saying a word, she blinked. "I did not think you would go public." "You should have thought harder," I said. Her voice dropped. "You were not supposed to win like this." I held her gaze. "Neither were you." Then I walked past her, not rushed, not dramatic, just final. Later that evening, a mutual acquaintance told me she left alone. No ride, no friends, no exit strategy. Her name was already removed from next month's sponsor list. Her firm had suspended her consulting contract. The ripple effect would keep spreading, not because I shouted, but because I never needed to. The house was quieter without her. Not peaceful, not yet, just quieter. I kept the door to her office shut. I would deal with the contents later. The walls still held the scent of her perfume, faint, synthetic, calculated. Even that had been chosen to project power. Her lawyer reached out 3 days after the gala. The tone was professional but clipped. She was not contesting the asset freeze. She was not requesting negotiation. She wanted only one thing: silence. "Tell him I will leave the country for 6 months if he agrees not to release further evidence," the message read. I declined, not because I wanted vengeance, because the truth deserved air. My firm released a short internal briefing confirming the audit results. No drama, no accusations, just facts. Our board meetings resumed without tension. The shareholders stopped asking nervous questions. The stability had returned, and with it so had trust. She moved out within a week, not with dignity, just with efficiency. A travel bag with essentials, 3 suitcases, one folded piece of paper she left on the hallway table, a typed apology unsigned, full of phrases like wrong judgment and emotional pressure, and it was never about hurting you. I did not read past the first paragraph. She tried once more, weeks later, an email this time. "I made mistakes, but we had something real. Maybe one day you will remember that." I deleted it because I would not the way she meant. What I would remember was how calculated she had become, How easily she had crafted each step, leaking information, forging documents, exploiting legal gray zones, not in rage, not in spite, in strategy. And now she was a strategist without a boardroom. Her consulting career collapsed after 2 clients cut ties. The federal review into her whistleblower filing expanded when Derek Miles named her during his own hearing. Her 2 closest friends distanced themselves quietly. One of them issued a statement denying knowledge of the forged documents. She had tried to outmaneuver the system. Now she was no longer welcome at the table. As for me, no redemption arc. No clean slate. Healing did not come in waves. It came in moments. The first time I sat at my own conference table without wondering who was watching. The first morning I walked into the kitchen and felt nothing. No scent, no emotion, just space. The first investor meeting where I said, "We have stabilized," and believed it. I did not move on, I recalibrated. No new relationship, no grand epiphany, just a sharper edge, a quieter mind, and a firm understanding of one truth. When she said I would miss her one day, she was not predicting. She was negotiating, and I never accepted the terms.